Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you on a special Talking Success Extra. We are recording this, and so you're able to share it with all of your team and anybody who you feel can benefit from this. My name's Greg Halliday. I'm here with Lance Garvin, and if you tuned in about a little bit more than a week ago, Lance introduced us to something that is really a difference maker in sort of any endeavor that you might be involved with that's meaningful, and especially, I would say, work. And it certainly has, we think, really crucial applications here in Soul Naturals as people get together with their teams and they're involved in helping other people make a difference in their lives, both with their health and oftentimes with a business they can build. So first of all, let me just thank Lance. Thank you, Lance, for coming and joining us in the studio here tonight.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
For those of you who may not know, I've known Lance for many years, and Lance is one of the owners of Find Mojo, and a fantastic and really game-changing company that focuses on the power of motivation, both understanding what motivation is and also understanding how it works in us and how it works in others and how that affects how we work with each other, how we treat each other in whatever we might be engaged with. So we were so fascinated by what he presented last week. He agreed to do a 2-part series where he does more of it. Now, I'm not going to say it's as much training. Sometimes you guys they're like day-long seminars or
yeah, correct.
So this is synthesized from a longer seminar, but we're going to do 2 full segments of training to help us understand better this motivators assessment that we're able to take, and more about, in fact, I'm going to let Lance explain to you a little bit more about why that assessment can be such a powerful tool, both for yourself and for others. So without further ado, Lance, do you want to, anything before you jump into the training, anything you'd like to say just by way of introduction for people who are kind of hearing about this the first time?
Yeah. We love doing what we do. Our slogan is "Life is short, love your work," and we live by that. And so we spend over 90,000 hours on average at work or doing the work that we do. And so we should enjoy it if we're going to spend that much time doing it. And so we help organizations understand what it is that drives their people, that gets them out of bed in the morning, and how to get more of that into what they do. So
I love that whole topic. It's definitely something that I think plays right into how we can better help other people and mentor them. So I know Lance got a presentation, you've got a presentation tonight, and our plan tonight is we're going to spend 30 minutes, and when we get to the 30-minute point, we will call a pause, and then next week at the same time, Lance will do the second half of the training. So that's the plan for this evening. So without further ado, then I will turn the time to you, Lance.
Okay, we'll jump right into it. So like Greg mentioned, this is one of the programs that we do with our clients. And just to give you 30 seconds of high-level background, our company is called Find Mojo, and that's what we do. We help organizations find their mojo. And there's been a lot of mojo lost over the last several years, especially. But we've worked with over 70% of the Fortune 500. We've worked with smaller organizations as well. It really doesn't matter the size of the organization that we work with. We just want to help people understand what it is that gets them excited and how to get more of that into the work that they do. So when we talk about mojo, our definition of it is that it refers to the confidence, enthusiasm, and positive energy of a person that they bring to work, enabling them to perform at a high level, right? Inspiring others and consistently achieving strong results. It's kind of that spark that you talk about, or that you see in people. Kind of that Simon Cowell. What's the word that he uses?
I'm not sure.
Well, that X factor, I think, is what he talks about. And so it's kind of that spark, that excitement that people bring. So in our sessions, like Greg mentioned, we'll spend a full day with organizations, and then even some follow-up and some consulting and things like that. But we're going to cover as much as we can of at least discover today as part of the 4-phase model that we utilize. But the discover phase, like the slide says, it's kind of about those ahas. Let's let's figure out what it is that motivates us. Most people that we talk with and that we work with really don't even understand or know what does motivate them. Oftentimes people will say, well, I do it for purpose, or they'll joke and say, well, I do it for the money. And when the curtain's pulled back, usually it's not for the money. According to our studies, about 11% of people have money as a top motivator, as one of their top motivators. That means 89% don't. We'll all take the money, right?
Yeah.
But we do it for other reasons, and we obviously need money to be able to pay the bills and provide a living for our families. But it goes well beyond that for most people. Sculpt, develop, aspire. Those are the other three pieces of the model. But tonight we're going to talk about discover. And as we go through this session right now, we're going to learn the difference between motivation and engagement. If you've taken the motivators assessment, hopefully you have. You're welcome to pull out in fact, I encourage you to pull out your motivators results. You'll understand what your motivators are and what your identities are. We'll talk about what's confirming and also what's surprising. I had a couple that were surprising to me when I first took it. And then we'll talk about addressing blind spots and potential conflicts as well. And if you haven't taken the motivators assessment, Greg, are we able to send out a follow-up email with the link for people to take it? And I can say it right here.
Yes, absolutely. The link, it has been posted to the Soul. I think it's the Soul Business Facebook page, but we'll send out another follow-up. The link is active, and if you saw it before, it is active through the end of the month. We'll send a follow-up link as well, Lance, so make sure people can find that, and it's not hard to get to the link.
Perfect. And you don't have to worry about doing it right now if you're watching this live. If you're watching the recording, make sure you take it first and then go through this, because these will be great applications for you. But yeah, and like Greg says, it's active until the end of the month. And normally you go to our website, you would pay $75 just to take the assessment. It's free right now to all Soul members. So and feel free to share it. So one thing I want you to think about is, if you could change one thing about your current work situation, what would it be? I want you to just take a moment and think through that question. And as we go through this session tonight, and I know our time is short, but we'll talk about ways you can potentially change that or get some things more involved with something we call add, alter, or transfer, right? Where can we add things that are more exciting? Where can we alter some responsibilities or some things about our work that we do? And how can we potentially, if possible, and where possible, even transfer it to somebody else? Maybe somebody else loves doing it. One person's garbage is another person's treasure, as the phrase goes. And so there'll be some things to think about in this regard. But let's first talk about the difference between motivation and engagement. And first, I'd like to watch a video. In fact, can that be played for us? And we'll just let me set the video up really quick. So if you've seen the movie Office Space, a guy named Peter Gibbons, there are a couple of consultants that come into his place of work, and they're each named Bob, and they're interviewing different people, finding out, what is it that you do here, and tell me more about your responsibilities and things like that. Everybody that has met with these two consultants, with Bob and Bob, they've embellished what they do. They are not quite truthful in how they answer. But Peter comes in and, let's watch the video and you can see what he says.
Next batter looks like a Peter Gibbons. Oh, there you are. We were just talking about you. You must be Peter Gibbons. Terrific. I'm Bob Slidell. This is my associate, Bob Porter.
Oh, hi, Bob. Bob?
Pretty much go ahead and grab a seat and join us for a minute or two. You see, what we're actually trying to do here is we're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day at work. So, if you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm thirsty.
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Peter, would you be a good sport and indulge us and just tell us a little more?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something about TPS reports. The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
Don't care?
It's a problem of motivation, all right?
So it's a matter of motivation. It's old Peter Gibbons. Ironically, he ends up getting promoted in the movie, and he was so honest that everybody loved what he said, and it got him places. But what's the difference between motivation and engagement? Let's talk about that really quickly. Motivation typically refers to the internal drive or desire to accomplish a specific task or goal. So it's more internal in an individual. And motivation can fluctuate based on what's going on in your life, based on certain circumstances. Engagement, related to it, encompasses more of a broader spectrum of attitudes and behavior, and kind of connecting what you're doing with the organization and its goals. And it reflects more of tapping into that discretionary effort and the relationship that you have between you and your team, your organization, etc.
So Lance, just jumping in here quickly, a lot of times the terminology they'll talk about in our industry is motivation maybe compared to my why, that spark, the reason that gets that I like this and that I want to do this. But I don't know, there are different ways people talk about engagement. And I don't know that we always define it. And that's one of the things that fascinated me about this is there are different ways where I can be committed or not committed in different activities. My involvement can be less or more. And definitely some things I emotionally am driven by, and others, they're just not my thing, but they are somebody else's. So that was the next thing. I'm sorry to jump in here, but
no, it's great.
That part, the engagement part, really grabbed my attention. And I think it's just as pertinent here as, like you say, in an office building.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we do quite a bit of is we work with organizations who have taken engagement surveys and they come back low. And so we help them get that engagement up because, it's like we're talking about, it depends on, it really relates to what you're willing to do with and for the organization that you're part of. And so you want engagement to be high. And your motivation is your why. Well, we love that phrase too. So how would you describe a highly engaged, and this says employee, but, a highly engaged distributor, or what about a disengaged distributor? What does that look like? And you probably have some thoughts or even some people that come to mind when I bring up that term, or when I bring up both these terms. So it was interesting. There was one time, this was a few years ago, me and a couple of my business partners were on a campus of an organization, and the CEO was giving us a tour, and we thought it was there were a lot more people there than I realized on this particular campus of this organization. And I asked this individual, I said, how many people work here? And he almost stopped dead in his tracks and looked at me and he said, about half of them. And I was referring to head count. He was referring to effort. And so kind of caught us off guard a little bit, but, and he, quite frankly, he may have had a part in that, related to their engagement of what they were doing. But it's always your worst people who quit, right? Is that true, Greg? Your worst people who quit?
No.
No, it's not. They will stay with you as long as you let them. It's your top performers that you have to worry about leaving. And it's not because they're not good at what they do. It's because they're not engaged, not excited about the work that they're doing. And so engagement is super important, and motivation plays a part in that. So we talk about something called the engagement continuum. And when it comes to employee engagement, quite frankly, most people aren't either all in 100% or all out 100%. They're on a continuum, and they kind of move, it could fluctuate. It could be based on, a number of different things, but they could be super, super excited or not so much, depending on what's going on with the culture, with personal circumstances, with their team, even with their motivators, which can change over time as well. So we were working with this healthcare organization, and it was really interesting. They had green teams, yellow teams, and red teams is how they classified them. Green teams were organizations that they had high scores for productivity. They had high employee engagement and satisfaction scores. Turnover was low, and their net promoter scores and patient satisfaction scores were all good too. They were the highest out of the organization. They had yellow teams that were average. It was fine. They're right in the meaty part of the curve, as we like to say. Not showing off, not lagging behind, but just kind of right there showing up. And then they had red teams, which they scored the lowest in almost every category. The environments were oftentimes toxic, and employee net promoter scores and patient satisfaction scores were all low. Well, what they did was they took the team leaders from these teams and they switched them, and they took the leaders of the green teams to the red teams, and they took the leaders of the red teams and put them on the green teams, and they left the yellow right where they were. What do you think happened with that? I'll give you a second to think about that. From the vice president of HR of this organization, she said, in every single case, no matter the background or expertise of the employee, within a year, the red departments had turned green and the green departments had turned red. The engagement level of the employees was infectious and made all the difference. So it was really these leaders that knew how to engage and get their people excited and harness that excitement and those things that drove their people, got more of that into their life. And like we talk about add, alter, and transfer, they would remove the things that were frustrating to their people, if and when possible. They gave them more of the things that were exciting to them. And within not too short of a time, that changed everything for these teams. And we'll get into this more in the next session, but the whole leader aspect is so important as you are building your teams, especially in the situation where the people that are on your teams don't necessarily work for you, right? They're all independent. They are not paid a salary. They are not required to do certain things on a daily basis. I mean, certainly they want to, and you want them to achieve certain goals and levels and things like that. But it's an interesting dynamic in this industry for sure. You know what? We're going to skip a couple of these things. We talked about the engagement continuum. Let's talk about understanding motivators and identities. So if you've taken the motivators assessment, you will get back what we call your 23 motivators. And those are stack ranked personal to you as to what's the most important. And I'll show you a piece of a sample report here in a moment. Then those identities are actually clusters of these motivators that are related to each other. Okay, I'll come back to that here in a minute. Probably many of you have taken various assessments over your careers, and one of the most common ones is a personality assessment that identifies who we are, how we like to be communicated with, how we interact with other types of personalities in other types of situations. And they're great. It's really good to understand that. The interesting thing is they ask you questions typically about when you were young, and so you take a personality assessment once, you probably are not likely to need to take it again once you know. Strengths assessment, also good, and there are lots of those out there. You've probably taken one, and it's great to understand what we do well and what skills we bring to the table. But as I mentioned before, we could be really good at something but not necessarily enjoy it or even hate it, which causes even more disengagement. And so again, it's not, we don't quit doing something because we're good at it. We quit because we're not excited about it most oftentimes. So this is where motivators come in. What are we excited about? What gets us out of bed in the morning? And how do we get more of that into the work that we're doing? And motivators can change over time. You can probably think about things earlier on in your career and in your life that were more exciting and more important to you at different times than they are now. And some things remain constant. But it's been super interesting to study that, and we publish reports on that as well. If you go to our website, you can see some infographics on this as well, but super interesting.
Lance, I have a question for you on that one. Have you seen over recent years, let's say the last 4 or 5 years, has there been any acceleration in how often motivators change, or has that always been constant throughout the years? I don't know. Do they change randomly as big things happen in life? Is it something that, in the last 5 years, change is more frequent than it used to be, or have you seen anything like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I love the question. It is more random, but it depends on what's going on in somebody's life, right? Whether that's health, whether that's job or money or family situations, anything like that can change motivators literally overnight. We saw a lot of this during the pandemic because importance shifted for a lot of people based on what was going on through that really unknown, and the word that was so prevalent was unprecedented, right? And so yeah, they can change depending on what's going on in somebody's life for sure. So the 23 motivators, these are in alphabetical order here. Everything from autonomy to developing others to ownership, service, variety. We got money in there. Those are all things that motivate us to different degrees and at different times. And they're all positive concepts. Nothing in here is negative. You'll notice that fear is not one of the motivators. Fear can be a motivator for sure, but it's more short term. These are all motivators that, based on initially a big 10-year study with over 850,000 people, the largest of its kind, were distilled after basically a 2-year follow-up to that on really what are the things that are most common for all of us as human beings, and what stand out far and above everything else that are positive concepts. And these were the results from that. Now, you'll notice that some of these, like I mentioned earlier, are similar in nature. Money, prestige, recognition, those are all similar. And so those are what we would call an identity. And we'll talk about those really quick. And there are 5 identities on your report as well. And we talk about how you have a primary identity, a secondary identity. We're not just strictly an achiever or a builder or a caregiver, for example. We are more of a blend of these identities, and we'll talk about that. And you'll see that in your report as well. So, number 1, category. There are 3 categories of your motivators. Your first 7 are your strong. Your second 7 are your moderate. And then your last 9 are your neutral, meaning that, those don't necessarily move the needle for you. Moderate can be important some of the time, and your strong, those are the things that really get you excited about what you're doing. It gives you a definition as well in your report, so it'll give you further insights as to what that means. And then the importance meter, that green line right there, shows you really how important that is compared to everything else. And as you go down your 1 through 23, you'll see that line either be the same or decrease as you go down, or not exist at all. Now, sorry, we're going to skip a couple of these things. So here are your identities, for example. Thinkers, those who are more often creative, those who love to learn, you like variety, and you can see under the thinkers on the left, autonomy, creativity, excitement, impact, learning, and variety are all motivators from the thinker's identity. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have all 6 of those in your top 7 motivators if you show up as a thinker, but you'll probably have 1 or 2 or 3, and probably higher up in your top 7 than you would otherwise. And so that's what that means too. This report that you get is 40 plus pages. It's got a lot of information. If people are having trouble sleeping at night, they can open it up and read it. But there's a lot of information there to really understand what it is that that what these mean to you.
So you have, oh, okay, good. You're going to look at each of those identities, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
So the achievers, they love a good challenge. They're driven to excel. They thrive under pressure. I feel like I'm reading a product sample of Soul Products.
Don't you have some Excel here with you tonight?
I do.
Just show everybody.
Super tasty.
I asked Lance what he wanted when he came to the Soul Studio. He said, "Give me an Excel on ice." So that's what he's doing.
And that you did. It's delicious, by the way. So the achievers, they also believe completing tasks is crucial. They feel guilty if they aren't giving everything they've got. They're highly accountable, right? They will tell you what they are doing and what they're not doing. They like to be in control. They believe strongly in their talents, that they come with great skills, and they will also oftentimes set ambitious goals. Those are some of the characteristics of achievers. You can see challenge, excelling, ownership, pressure, problem solving are all the achiever motivators. The builders, they want to help others grow, feel a sense of destiny to help others. They want to surround themselves with a passionate team as well. They believe that inside everyone is a leader as well. The builders are loyal friends. You can probably think of people that fit this category so far. They believe doing good is more important than making money. And they oftentimes connect well with others as well. And you can see the motivators underneath that icon as well for the builders. Caregivers. Caregivers, my primary identity. And they empathize with those around them. They're natural communicators. They're great listeners. They're dependable. They respect people, no matter what level they are, whether they're a CEO, whether they're, a billionaire, or, somebody that's not. Try hard to balance work and home. They're genuine. They're positive and lighthearted, and typically they don't want to be in charge. And I will confirm that one too. I would rather have somebody take the lead. And man, where can I help? What can I do? And I've got family and fun as two of my top motivators, and so that's certainly what puts me in the caregiver category right there. The thinkers, and I want to be aware of our time, Greg. The thinkers, and you can.
We got 2 or 3 minutes. We probably can finish these 5.
Yeah.
today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thinkers can. In fact, I want to share a quick story at the very end. Okay.
For sure.
So I'm going to go through these real quick. You can pause them. You can read them when you watch it again. We're going to skip the exercise. And we'll do the exercise again or another time. But let me tell you really quickly about Freddie Wazorek. He was a German military officer, and he and his wife moved to Florida. And when he retired, and after about 6 months of retirement, his wife said, "Hey, Freddie, you better get a job, or else this is not going to go well for us." So he went over to Disney World and got a part-time job as one of their security personnel, and fairly low on the totem pole in the organizational chart, right? Well, Freddie, he would see all these kids come over dressed up as their favorite Disney character, some of the adults as well, but you've probably seen this with the little kids. And he ended up getting an autograph book. And for example, in this picture, he would go up to this girl and say, "Cinderella, I've been waiting to see you all day. I knew you would come. Can I get your autograph?" And these little kids were thinking to themselves, "Oh my gosh, he thinks I'm the real Cinderella." And he would write or they would write their autographs in his book. He ended up getting over 1,400 signatures or autographs. He learned how to say "have a magical day" in, I think it was 15 or 16 different languages, and just really went above and beyond what his responsibilities were. Was he tasked to do that? Absolutely not. But he was motivated. They knew his motivators. He tapped into them and did things that were exciting to them. He said, "It makes my magic too. The magic is not limited to the guests." He was on the Today Show. He got all sorts of notoriety, but it was a phenomenal example of what people will do when they tap into their discretionary effort using their motivators. He was a builder, builder caregiver. So you can see that shining through here. But one of my favorite stories, just awesome. So
I love that, Lance. And I think you shared that the other day, but I did not know what his identities were.
Yeah.
So builder, caregiver. To me, it's fascinating because, in fact, I'm just looking on here. We're going to wrap up today so we can end at a half hour because we're going to have part 2 next time. But I have to tell you one comment. You know, I won't name you, but one of our leaders on here comments, so interesting. Her, one of the identities that she would have thought as one of her primary identities was last. And I think that's what I love about this. It's what we learn about ourselves. In fact, I'm feeling like, to me, I would love to get a copy of the identities of all of our soul leaders, or any of you, and any of you who maybe you're not a soul leader, but you're taking this, send it to your mentor. Because to me, it's fascinating, and it's also crucial because I love to know how you like to be worked with. And to me, it's worth the time for us to structure how we engage with each other in the soul, in our soul framework, in a way that is most fulfilling to you right now. So I find this really fascinating. 40 pages, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I've got stuff that I can learn in every part of that to me, it's valuable information. So Lance, anything just wrapping up tonight before we close out and get ready for the second part?
Yeah, I would say as continued learning here, read through your assessment profile report, highlight areas where you can pull out some more value and do more using your motivators and your why, as we talked about. You know, even share these with a colleague, a significant other, a friend, and then maybe in your meetings you can share this with people. And like Greg said, share it with the organization, share it with the leadership team here, so that they know you better and know how to work with you even better than they are. So that's what I would leave with.
I love that. Thank you again, Lance. And remember, you can find the link. You go to the website, Motivators Assessment. Here's the link again. If you lost it, take a picture of that. That link gets you to the assessment, and you can share it. Lance, you heard him earlier. You can share it with anyone you're dealing with. I had someone ask me today, hey, can I share this with my son-in-law? You bet. Yep. You bet you can. I do feel like it's great for soul and for life. So we'll see you soon. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We're going to see you next week, and we'll get part 2 of the training. Thanks again to Lance Garvin for being here and for the awesome information.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.